Holding rental properties can provide you with passive income through the monthly cash flow and future equity capture by appreciation over the long term. In this episode, I will go over how we analyze our rental properties. Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Baller Show. If you're new here, my name is V. Lee. This is the show about sharing real estate investing knowledge, experience, and real-life lessons. The purpose is to help you to reach your financial freedom in real estate investing faster. So first, let's talk about cash flow. Cash flow is simple. Cash flow equal to monthly rent minus monthly expenses. So if you collect $1,500 a month in rent and your monthly expenses is $1,000, then your cash flow is said to be $500 per month. Simple enough? So if you want to cash flow more, there's only two ways. You have to increase your monthly rent or income or reduce your monthly expenses or both. No brainer, right? So let's get to it. Okay, so next, how do you know what a property would rent for? If you are working with a realtor, your realtor should be able to help you with this information. They can go through the MLS, and most MLS, like in Houston, we have a very robust MLS, and often you can get a pretty good idea of what a property would rent for. If you don't have access to a realtor, and if you just out of curiosity, you can use tools like Rental Meter, which is rentometer.com or Zillow.com. Either one can provide you with a pretty good idea on what a property would rent for a month. So key things to know here is typically the market will determine your rent. You could improve your rent a little bit if your home is better than other homes in your neighborhood, but not by much. So if you rehab your home and you do a better job, your home looks better than other homes, you may be able to get a little bit more rent, but most of the time it's determined by your market. So that's how you get your monthly rent number. Okay, so let's talk about expenses. I like to group these three expenses together because they kind of affect each other, right? So you have your purchase price, your down payment, and then your rehab cost, okay? So the purchase price, obviously, like I said earlier, the higher you pay, the more your cost is going to be, right? The lower your purchase price, the lower your monthly expenses will be, okay? So I like to buy discounted property, as you know. So I like my purchase price to be as low as possible, all right? And I'm not against you buying it at retail as long as the number makes sense for you, for your situations, and your objective, okay? So we have the purchase price, the down payment, and the rehab cost. I'd like to introduce you to a term what we call ARV. ARV is called the after repair value, and that is what the property is worth in its tip-top condition or rent-ready conditions or move-in ready condition. Let's say if the property is worth $200,000, right? And it's going to cost you $20,000 to get there, then at the very least, your purchase price should be $180, just for simple math, right? Okay, so if your rehab is going to cost you a lot, then you want to reduce your purchase price so that you don't go over your ARV. And that's just my preference. But I know there are people who are okay with overpaying, okay? So just got to check your objective and what makes sense for you. As far as your rehab cost, you should have an inspections, right? And you should know, okay, do I need to replace the roof? Do I need to replace the AC? Do I need to replace any plumbing system, water heater, electrical panel? Are there any big expenses that's going to happen now or over the next 5 years, right? Because you want to tackle them upfront or be prepared for them so you don't get surprises, okay? Especially if you're going to cash flow like $200 and you got to replace the AC unit, which is going to cost you $6,500, it will take a while to recapture that money, that expense, okay? we got the 3 expenses: the purchase price, the down payment, and your rehab cost, right? The more down payment you put down, obviously, will also result in a smaller loan amount, and also then will ultimately result in a lower P&I, stand for principal and interest. Okay? More down payment will lower your loan amount, then result in lower monthly mortgage payment. Then the next expenses would be your taxes and insurance. That's why you hear the term PITI, and that stands for principal, interest, tax, and insurance. But that's not all your monthly expenses, so keep that in mind, okay? So if people in their calculations, and they would do something like this, monthly rent minus PITI equal to cash flow. So don't make that mistake, because your other expenses could reduce your cash flow. All right, so you got to look at what your monthly PITI would be, and that is by figuring out what your purchase price is, how much down payment you're going to put down, what your interest rate would be, how long of a terms on your loan, if you're going to do 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30 years, because they will affect how much your monthly PITI would be. Now that you got that down, the next part of your expenses would be your HOA dues. If you're in an area where you have a homeowner association, they may require you to pay a fee, and it could be monthly or annual. Most of the time it's annual, okay? If you own a condo, especially, then it's probably going to be monthly or sometimes semi-annually. Then you're going to have your yard maintenance or snow removal or both. And that typically, every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So it's small, but nevertheless, you need to consider it. Now, you will maintain it until it's rented, okay? So once it's rented, that's become your tenant's responsibility. Then you have your utility, and same with utility. So you got to carry your water, gas, electricity until it's rented. The next expense would be property management fee. Now, some people choose to self-manage because they don't want to pay the property management fee. But the question that I would suggest you to ask yourself is, how much is your time worth? Do you want to deal with it? Do you want to take that call? Or do you want to hire someone else to deal with it? It's entirely up to you. It's just whatever, fit your situation best. Okay. So management fee would typically, in our area, we have in Houston, so some of the company would charge about a flat rate. The more property you have, the lesser that flat rate would be. And then in some other company would charge you a percentage of your rent, and that ranging from 8 to 12%. So just find out what's available in your area and see what's best. The next expense that I want to talk about is vacancy. So obviously, when you first purchase the property until the time you have your first tenants move in, you may have a longer vacancy there, right? Because you're going to have rehab time if it needs rehab, and then you take marketing time and then get your tenants moved in. If your rehab takes about 2 months, add another 2 months in for marketing preparations and get your tenants moved in. If it takes less than 2 months, well, that's 1 extra month of income in your pocket, right? So I'm conservative. So I like to budget more, okay? I always like to over budget my expenses because it's better that way than if I under budget, For vacancy, I typically would budget an additional 2 months on top of my rehab time. And after that, once it's rented, I would budget 1 month of vacancy for every 12 months of rent. That's just the way I calculate. I'd rather be overly exaggerate my expense, and I'm conservative, than underestimate my expenses. And so things to know here with vacancy is we like to sign a 2 years lease. Once we acquire that rental, we want to keep it for a while. I don't intend to sell it soon, so I like to sign a 2-year lease. When I get close to the end of the 2-year lease, I like to offer the tenants incentive to extend for another 2 years because it's actually less expensive to offer incentive than to let them move out, unless you are way under your rent price in your area. Okay, let's say you get $2,000 a month for rent, right? It's going to cost you about $3,000-4,000 to do touch-up paint. So 1 month of rent, it's less than that already. It's always cheaper to renew your tenant than to let them move out and increase the rent. Well, sorry, let me take it back. It's not always cheaper, but in most situations, it is cheaper. Okay, so the last expense that we're going to talk about is your maintenance, the ongoing maintenance. Some investor would budget about 10% of the monthly rent for monthly maintenance. And so back to my point earlier, the better you prepare your property, the less maintenance you're going to have. And secondly, the better you vet your tenants, the less unexpected monthly maintenance you're going to have. Okay? So just do budget for it. And if you're not using it, then that money's just going to be extra for the rainy days, right? So that's all for the monthly expenses. Another number that we analyze is cash on cash return. So this is how you calculate cash on cash return. So if you cash flow $500 a month, you take that time 12 months, equal to $6,000 per year. And you take $6,000 divided by your cash out of pocket at the time of your acquisitions when you purchase the property. So in this case, let's say your cash out of pocket is $30,000 and you take $6,000 divided by $30,000, that's equal to 0.2 or 20%. This is a really good cash on cash return. So that's another number that we analyze. Now, obviously, if your cash flow is low and your cash out of pocket is high, then your cash on cash return will be lower. Okay, so let us know if you are considering buying a rental or if you own rental right now and what your numbers look like. Leave us a comment below. Okay, so with everything I said so far, let me throw a curveball at you. So every now and then you'll hear someone willing to buy and hold a rental property with a negative cash flow. And why would they do it? Well, here's my explanation for that. Is in some market where your property value is high, but then, they are hoping or betting on that future appreciation. In reality, even though the property using our formula will give a negative cash flow, but it's really not, because the principal is being paid down every month that investor is making money, paying the mortgage, and every month the tenant is paying the rent. So tenant pay the rent, so the rent is less than the monthly expenses, but if the principal is being paid down every month, it may be a wash there. So it may look like a negative cash flow, but there's that other, it's not really a negative cash flow. So that is all about analyzing rental property. Thanks for watching the Real Estate Ballers show. If you found value in this show, please hit that like and subscribe button and do share this episode with a friend. Thank you and see you in the next video.